So hello again, this is Leia. So I kind of wanted to make a Brawl Stars video, but I didn't really know what to do, and I'm pretty exhausted because it's Monday. So my idea was I was going to have like Brawl Stars gameplay in the background, and then I was going to just talk about American politics here for about like 5 minutes, depending on how long I can do it because I'm pretty tired. But I guess I'll just start. So, first thing that I want to talk about is just like the American education system and how flawed it is. And I know it's flawed in many other places too, like if we're talking about China, basically not any European countries. Like if you think about Finland and Norway, they have way better education systems and prison systems than us, mostly because they focus on the aspect of fun. Like here in America, we consider education as just like something that needs to be learned, like a burden. Like whenever I go to school, I feel like the ideal thing I should be thinking is, wow, I'm so excited to go to school. But the kind of things that I really think when I go to school are, okay, another day, let's see how much homework I get. Because that's the thing, like in places like Norway and Finland, where the education systems are ranked like number 1 and number 2 in the world, they don't give any homework. Because I feel like if you give someone homework, there's the prerequisite, just like the given fact that you feel the need to have them work outside class in order to understand a subject, when it's a teacher's role to better teach the subject inside the class. And anyway, another thing I'd like to touch upon, I made an entire presentation about this for my legal ethics class, but that was like a week ago and I don't remember everything. But basically, I feel like the education system just holds people to really high standards. And I mean, I guess you could say that I'm probably saying this because I'm a student, but I go to an elite high school, so it's kind of hard to not say this. I mean, with the college admissions process, like the main determinants of intelligence in the United States are extracurriculars, GPA, and standardized test scores. But I mean, like I feel like that begs the question, like, are test scores and extracurriculars and all these things like valid ways to determine whether or not someone is going to be successful in society? And I think that's no, because I mean, studies have shown that people who come from low income and underprivileged backgrounds typically have a harder time scoring just high scores on standardized tests, because standardized tests, I mean, they're basically just an accumulation of the Common Core to say like 11th and 12th grade. Like you should be getting an average score if you're an 11th or 12th grader. But if I'm someone from an underprivileged community, due to like a bunch of factors like underfunded schools and just like lack of access to test prep and all those other resources, I probably won't score as high. And there are also there are many more opportunities that upper class people get in order to ensure that they can succeed in life, being like with test prep, like just like programs that educate students, which are mostly really expensive for normal people to afford. And healthcare is also a big part of it, because I mean, I don't know, I was listening to this TED Talk a while back about healthcare, and I think about 60% of Americans here can't really afford like most of the healthcare needed. Like I have a friend who like, okay, wait, no, I'm not going to mention any names here. But okay, moving on from test scores. And also something about standardized tests, they're extremely watered down. Like the amount of questions that I get right when given a text to analyze about photosynthesis in C3 and C4 plants and the differences between them both, like the way that I can comprehend that kind of text, that won't help me in the future. Like my parents can't, like the stuff that I learned in school, my parents never did. And that's because my parents are immigrants, they didn't go to school in the United States. But I just feel like education standards are just getting higher and higher each year. And so is grade inflation, because I mean, due to like the really high amount of workload that we get. Okay, well, I knew I was supposed to talk about American politics, but I'm complaining about school, so we're gonna just go with that. So, in my presentation, yeah, GPA, like grade inflation. Like if I were to, I mean, I don't know how schools are across the world, but if I were to have one teacher for a certain topic, like teachers like have different standards for students. It depends on who you get. Like my history teacher last year was the worst person ever, and I almost failed the first term, and I'm usually like an amazing student. My history this teacher this year, he literally like he idolizes me, and I do so good in the class, but I don't feel like that's fair. I mean, I feel like everyone should be held to equal standards. I don't think that we should have some teachers who are considered easier than other ones, and then it's just like the luck of the draw. I mean, either way, if you're doing the best in your class, you will score well, but I don't really think that's fair. I mean, especially from someone coming from an elite high school. I have friends who go to other schools, like one of my friends for like 8 years, and now she goes to school upstate, and she her school kind of like works like a pass-fail kind of thing. So, oh my god, it's 5 minutes and 48 seconds. Okay, I'm going to try to wrap this up soon because I feel like this is extremely boring. But one of my friends, she goes to a school upstate. It's way smaller than my school. I mean, my school has 7,000 kids. I know maybe like a quarter of the people in my grade because there are just so many people, and every time there's a new year, like I'm in a class with like maybe like one person I know each class because there are just so many kids. But that's like my school, and that's unimportant. But basically, like her school, they don't have grades. It's just pass fail. So if you do good in the class and like you do everything that you're asked to, like you get 100, just an automatic 100. Like it's either a 100 or a 0. Meanwhile, like I go to an elite school and I have to struggle just to like maintain a 4.0 GPA, which is, I mean, it is pretty hard considering like all the work that they give us. Like back in middle school, I would be doing like 5 minutes of homework every night, and then I would just play video games for the rest of the day. I would like play Kirby or Mario or something. Now I have like maybe like 20 minutes of time to play video games, and I think that this is also because we live in a capitalist society where like free time and happiness are sort of monetized. Like whenever I'm doing something that's fun for me, I usually feel guilty because I'm thinking, well, I could be doing this or I could be doing this to look better for colleges. And I think that's like really terrible because I know that in a capitalist society like the one in the United States and like across the world, to look best just in general, like to be the best person that you can be, you have to be a good person. But I feel like a system which forces people to be good people won't really work. I feel like a system which makes people want to be good people should work. If someone's constantly being forced to have 20 to like 50 hours of community service every year, have all of these extracurriculars, have all of these like things on their resume that show that they're an amazing person, like I feel like anyone who does that kind of stuff is a good person, but I feel like more and more often people are kind of forced to be doing these things. And I mean, like, if someone is doing this just so they can succeed and not to be a good person, then what's the point? I mean, the point is to encourage everyone to be a good citizen. But, I mean, in my experience, I have a good resume and everything, but, I mean, I don't feel like I'm a good person because I'm doing this all out of necessity because I have to look good for colleges so I succeed in life. And it's just kind of, like, really sad. And, oh yeah, I want to talk about the school-to-prison pipeline. So more about underfunded schools in terms of extracurriculars. Kids aren't given that many opportunities. Like I know that like most of the summer programs that I'm doing this year, I'm doing a judicial internship and some other stuff like a University of Georgetown law program. But anyway, about the role of poverty in schools, like kids who go to underfunded schools aren't given like the resources to like be constantly reminded about like internships that are out. I mean, there's so many internships and scholarships out there. You could have any of them. Like it's pretty easy to just get into like one of like the millions of those that are out there, considering the amount of like teenagers there are in America. There's a very high amount. I think that we're like the second highest population in terms of like age. I don't know. Yeah. So, but like I'm always being like reminded of internships and all these things to the point where I'm like, stop reminding me. I don't need to be reminded. But there are people who like actually need this kind of stuff in like underprivileged communities and underserved areas, and they aren't being given it just because of where they live in like such poor communities that aren't given like the help that they deserve. And I think that this is another problem with the American education system. I feel like in an ideal education system, like in Finland, all schools are equal. I don't know why we have to have a hierarchy in schools in America. Like, I don't know why we placate the fact that some people are getting better education than other people based on, like, circumstantial factors. Like, I honestly consider myself to be going to my school because of circumstantial factors. I don't believe myself to be a particularly smart person. I think that I'm just this way because of how I got here in life. So yeah, and honestly, I probably sound like a crazy person. I've been talking for 10 minutes, 22 seconds, and I was going to talk about the school to prison pipeline, but I feel like this is, like, too much, so I'm going to stop. Goodbye!